Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In this Sunday episode, we have conservatives being censored right before the midterm elections. As always, hit that like and subscribe button, and also don't forget to hit that bell notification icon so you're notified whenever we upload, which is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Supernatural Saturdays, and a sprinkling of politics on Sunday. Be notified by hitting that bell icon. And with that being said, we have Steven Crowder, Savanah Hernandez, and other conservatives being shadow banned, censored right before the midterm elections. And folks, the timing is a little bit suspicious and fishy, which we talked about last week on the Bald Brad Show regarding my numbers declining vertically just randomly, which I'm going to show you the proof today, and we will break it down on how I believe I'm being shadow banned here on YouTube. Well, conservative comedian Steven Crowder is again being censored on YouTube, catching a hard strike and a 2-week ban from live streaming or posting any content leading into the consequential midterm elections. Crowder has routinely been in the crosshairs of YouTube censorship, often without any real transparency from big tech platform. This time was no different, which we've covered here on the Bald Brad Show pretty much every time he's been censored, banned, suspended, whatever it may be. There's been times where on social media, not specifically just YouTube, but Twitter and others, where he's been banned and there was no reason. Like literally when they sent him the notification that he was banned or suspended, they didn't even tell him why. So he had to get his lawyer out there trying to figure out what's going on. It was just a whole debacle. Well, YouTube this time told Crowder his video on Elon Musk taking over Twitter had violated their harassment, threats, and cyberbullying policy without any explanation about what exactly caused the violation. They're just going to throw a blanket statement out there rather than zooming in on what specifically was the issue. The Daily Wire reached out to YouTube about the suspension and strike, as well as the company's transparency with their creators. This is what they said, quote, "We removed content from and issued a strike to the Steven Crowder channel for violating our harassment policy, which prohibits content that graphically sexualizes or degrades an individual," YouTube Policy Communications Manager told the Daily Wire. As a result, the Steven Crowder channel is suspended from uploading content to YouTube for 2 weeks. Quote, "This content strike is on a show in which we discuss the importance of Elon Musk's effect on big tech, and specifically the effect on big tech's undue influence going into the midterms, putting their thumb on the scales of the election," Crowder told the Daily Wire. "It was also a show in which I promoted that I would be interviewing a surging Arizona gubernatorial candidate, Kari Lake, next week, right in the lead up to the election." And we all know how they've been handling Kari Lake, manipulating, censoring at times, all sorts of stuff. So it's just odd that, oh, hey, I'm going to be interviewing this person, and now he's getting a strike and ultimately removed for 2 weeks. "This strike is different," Crowder told Daily Wire. "Whether the intent was to silence or currently surge GOP gubernatorial candidate or not, along with burying a story that would shine a light on big tech's ability to do so, the end result is the same. Millions of individual people like Arizonans who wanted to hear from Kari Lake directly will not. Millions of people who wanted to know about Elon Musk's change to Twitter and by proxy their biased practices will not know now." Interesting. You throw Steven Crowder down, who gets millions of views, by the way. He's a megaphone for the GOP, for conservatives. He gets stories out there. He's going to be interviewing somebody that's actually running, and all of a sudden he just gets suspended for 2 weeks because of harassment policy, which could be freaking literally anything. And they're going to say it's because of an individual or whatever it may be. But then here's the issue. If it's going to be about an individual, sexualizing them or whatever it may be, I mean, literally look at what the left posts online. Whatever the LGBTQ plus LMNOP alphabet soup stuff they post online, that's all fine. To sexualize an individual there or sexualize children, whatever that may be, that's totally okay. But when a conservative talks about anything sexualizing something or an individual, whether it may or may not be happening, they're censored, and it's just right before the midterms. It's so convenient. It is so convenient. The conservative emphasized this point, calling these midterms the most important of our lifetimes. Notably, Crowder's influence has continued to grow despite repeated strikes and censorship from big tech platforms. On YouTube, the commentator has generated tens of millions of views this month alone, not including views from other platforms where his content is shared. You should be able still to go view his episodes over at Rumble. That's kind of where I watch him now. I don't want to give YouTube the revenue, the ad revenue. I'd rather share that information over at Rumble. Check this out on Instagram. Crowder echoed the same message. "I've been here before, but this one is very different. YouTube has issued yet another hard strike to the channel," he told his millions of followers. And it's not just Steven Crowder that got censored. Savanah Hernandez had an episode that was ultimately taken down due to censorship and policy and all this other stuff. So it's just literally conservative after conservative, and it's so rich, it's so interesting and sus that it's coming right before the midterms, where we're talking about elections, we're talking about governors that are running, we want to interview governors, you're talking about the midterms, and I said elections specifically because that's what Savanah Hernandez was talking about, and she got removed for misinformation. It's just they're the censorship gods. They're the free speech gods out there. And for those that are listening, I put that in air quotes because they don't want free speech. They say they do, but they don't. And we'll get that to that point in just a little bit here regarding one of the Supreme Court justices and free speech. We'll get there. But I wanted to cover the numbers here in the Bald Brad Show because in conjunction with Steven Crowder, Savanah Hernandez, Turning Point USA, and others, including Fox News, our viewership is being throttled in some way, shape, or form, not just through censorship, but literally throttled. Let's go through the numbers here. So obviously you guys don't see this back end data, but I do, and the numbers are missing, so I'll kind of fill you in on the gaps here. Let's look at this one first. This one has to do with views. Now, you might say, well, Brad, I see two spikes here. That doesn't look like you're being throttled. Trust me, let me get there. So on October 20th, we have about 30,000 views on that day, on October 20th. Literally over that next 12 hours, you see a vertical decline. And I uploaded videos then. So that number actually goes a little bit lower. And it would continue that trend. You see where that number 3 is, and you see where the spike is? Let me tell you why there's a massive spike. Because if there wasn't those 3 videos there, that number would have certainly dropped way, way further, and the decline would have been very, very sharp. The reason why there's a spike there was I noticed the decline when I posted. I said we lost 88% of our viewership in literally 12 hours. The reason why there was a spike because I needed to combat that decline in viewership, and one of the mechanisms to do that is to upload shorts. So not only did I upload a video, but I uploaded 2 shorts. To put in perspective, one of those shorts got 14,000 views that day. So half of that spike is just from one video. Meaning that if I didn't upload those 2 shorts, which probably made up almost the entirety of that spike, you're talking 200 views that day? Going from 30,000 to like 200? And the only reason shorts get that kind of viewership, some of you are like, well, that's not censorship. Shorts get promoted way, way more than a regular video does. YouTube is trying to expand their shorts. They're trying to compete with Instagram and TikTok and those platforms. So they're pushing out your content immediately. That 14,000 views came within like an hour. Then it dramatically declined to like 30 views an hour. So that doesn't surprise me. So the only reason we've flattened here was strictly due to those 2 shorts. So everything after those 3 videos right there and on is being sustained by those 2 shorts. There's no commentary. It's just making Joe Biden look bad in terms of him, losing his train of thought, forgetting where the hell he's at, falling asleep during an interview, or Karine Jean-Pierre. So my videos were doing phenomenal all up until the 20th. I find it interesting that you're seeing a vertical decline. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. That vertical decline would have continued. We would have lost 90+% of our viewership in literally 24 hours. And that trend would have continued. So don't think, oh, well, we plateaued and we're seeing like 20,000 views right now. That's literally all coming from those 2 shorts that I posted again, where that 3 is. Look at this. The trend continues on subscribership. We were getting anywhere from 60 to 160 subs a day. We were looking more at probably at like 75, 80 a day on average. And a vertical decline. Again, look where the 3 is. Once again, you see a spike. Why? Because I uploaded those 2 shorts and a bunch of people saw it. Those 2 shorts are sustaining those subscribers that you see now. And then you can see when the regular show hits because there's 4 uploads a day, which we do an episode. An episode usually contains 3 segments. So you get the episode and the 3 segments that are uploaded throughout the day. And that's sustaining. And so going hand in hand with what Steven Crowder's seeing, and there's other graphs that point towards the same thing. I mean, again, you see a vertical decline. If anybody knows statistics or graphs, even when I was a public accountant for auditing, when you see a vertical increase or you see a vertical decrease, that's what we call usually an anomaly. It just doesn't normally happen that way. Things tend not to change dramatically, and what you would see if something were to decrease is you would see a gradual decrease over time. I find it a little bit suspicious, and I said the exact same thing before Steven Crowder was censored, before Savanah Hernandez was censored. I said something's going on here, and it's really suspicious of what's taking place with conservatives. I'm not a big channel. I'm not saying I'm on the level of Fox News, Steven Crowder, anything of that nature. I look up to them. They are the giants. But what I'm saying is, I hound the Democrats every single day. I hound the Biden administration literally every single day. I hound the progressive left every single day. The shorts that I had that had over 1 million views are gone. They're not getting any viewership just randomly. That's what was sustaining the channel as well for quite some time. We were getting a lot of views because of those three. This is the Democrat Party is what it was titled, are just not getting any views. I just find it odd because it just throws Joe Biden and Democrats just right under the bus. And you got the midterms coming up, so now nothing's being shown. Does anybody else see the suspiciousness of it? Steven Crowder sees it. Savanah Hernandez sees it. James Klug sees it. We all see it. So I want to bring it to light of what's going on here with even a small channel like mine compared to the big channels. We're all seeing the same thing. We're all seeing the same thing. Now going into speaking about free speech, of how they tout this, right? Oh, well, everybody's opinion matters. Everybody deserves the right to say something. No, they don't. Not according to the left. I think everybody deserves the right to say something. I think free speech should be for everybody, regardless if I like their viewpoints or not. I think everybody has a right to say something stupid online or something very, very smart or has a lot of wisdom behind it online. Well, check this out. Over 500 individuals in the literary community signed an open letter this month calling for Penguin Random House, one of the biggest publishers in the world, to cancel Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett's new book. Just let that sink in. The community that writes books and utilizes the aspect of free speech is trying to decline somebody else's free speech to write a book. Signatories include Rick and Morty writer and employees of Barnes & Noble, Random House, and HarperCollins. Various publisher, members of the press, and freelance writers also signed the letter. This is the left for you, folks. The signatories noted that they, quote, care deeply about freedom of speech, but they also believe that publishers should upload their dedication to freedom of speech with a duty of care. Completely just cut off their thinking halfway through that. They want to uphold freedom of speech, but at the same time, they want to treat it as a duty of care by declining others to have the right to freedom of speech. You get what I'm saying? The letter started with a quote from a TED Talk. A film producer by the name of David Putnam, and also environmentalist, declaring that there should be a balance between freedom of speech and a wider moral and social responsibilities. In a nutshell, we're all for free speech, but just not for others that don't go along with our narrative or our viewpoint, meaning Amy Coney Barrett or conservatives or Republicans, regardless of if she is one or not. As long as you go against their narrative, they don't want you having books out there. The signatories claimed that publishing Barrett's book would be an attack on international human rights. Therefore, they argued canceling the deal would not be an act of censorship. Trying to just reason yourself through your thinking of, this is good. This is good. We're for free speech, but then at the same time, we're not for free speech for those that we think are bad people. It doesn't work that way. Either you're for free speech or you're not. I said myself, I'm not for racism, but if somebody wants to say something racist, go right ahead. I don't like that. I will bash the crap out of you for saying it. I'm not for Nazis. I don't like that. But if you want to go post some Nazi stuff online, freedom of speech, go right ahead. I will be right here knocking you down saying you're an idiot. So regardless of your viewpoint, I think you have a right, but that's not how the left thinks. And they'll reason themselves into some weird web of reasoning. I want to refrain from using the word logic because it's not logical, in censoring other people. And like I just said, that's how YouTube thinks as well. This is how the progressive left thinks. This is why I'm tying this Amy Coney Barrett article here in with what they did with Steven Crowder, into what they did with Savanah Hernandez, what they're doing to me, what I believe they're doing to me on shadow banning, regardless how small my channel is. I find it a little bit odd here, folks, that all the censorship's now happening once again. Midterms are coming up. We recognize that harm is done to a democracy not only in the form of censorship, but also in the form of assault and inalienable human rights, the letter stated. The signatories unified against the book deal because Barrett voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, the letter argued, that abortion access is a fundamental human right. If it's a fundamental human right, which is amazing that you can even come to that, of literally killing human beings is a fundamental human right. Let that sink in, you guys. Okay. A human right, killing human beings, millions, like 60 plus million easy. Since Roe v. Wade went into place, you have 19 million black babies being killed. But it's a fundamental human right. They accused Justice Barrett, Roberts, Kavanaugh, Thomas, and Gorsuch of dismantling protections for the human rights to privacy, self-determination, and bodily autonomy, along with the federal right to an abortion in the United States. And again, we've literally touched this at length of how they get this human rights to privacy that comes from Griswold v. Connecticut with the contraceptions. And then self-determination and bodily autonomy kind of comes in the form of Roe v. Wade, where the justices decided, what trimester can you get an abortion? When does the federal government step in? When does the state step in? Which, again, is not the role of the Supreme Court. But we can't talk about that, you guys, because if we talk about it, it goes against their narrative. If you go against their narrative, then you're against human rights. And that's why they want to censor Amy Coney Barrett. According to the signatories, by voting to overturn the ruling, Barrett is guilty of inflicting her own religious and moral agenda upon all Americans while appropriating the rhetoric of even-handedness. Folks, it's baffling to me that when you have a Supreme Court justice look at the Constitution and not find the right to abortion in there, which the own justices of the time of Roe v. Wade, as well as Griswold v. Connecticut, spoke about, including their own clerks, that it's not there, you can't find it anywhere, and that it was bad law. all of a sudden, she's crazy that she's inflicting her own moral and religious viewpoints. It's so baffling to me. Look, you knuckleheads, if you want it in there, have Congress put it in there. Don't blame it on the justices for looking at the Constitution going, yep, not there, sorry. But that's what they do. They want to push it. And you know what they say? You know what their narrative and their argument for all this is? Oh, well, it's been there for 50 years, so that's why we should keep it. Which is, you guys, it's a crazy argument to state. There was a lot of Supreme Court cases that are bad decisions historically that should not have continued just because, well, they were there historically. They've been there for 50 years. We got to keep it. They had that right. They should just keep it. Gee, there's a lot of, again, rather than going into it, trying to keep this episode short, there was Supreme Court cases that were ruled incorrectly, that were there for a long time, that were ultimately overturned. Thank God they were, because they were incorrect. And I'm sure there's people of color that are very happy that they were overturned. But according to Karine Jean-Pierre, who also is a person of color, I'm sure she was glad that they were overturned as well. But according to her narrative, of which I just spoke of, well, it was a right for 50 years. Why would you just take it away? That's their thinking. That's their thinking, you guys. The letter slams Penguin Random House for paying Barrett a $2 million advance for the deal. I would read her book. She's a Supreme Court justice. I love Supreme Court books. Ted Cruz has a great one. One Vote Away is the title of his book. But, hey, we're just going to sit there, and anybody that disagrees with us, we're just going to try and censor them and silence them. And then we'll come up with some sort of policy and harassment that kind of proves our legitimacy of removing them. Again, that's what they did to Steven Crowder. And now they're removing people for misinformation. Literally removing people for what they believed that they said was misinformation. I'm not talking about disinformation. Disinformation is when you knowingly say something that is wrong to try and sway somebody else's perspective on some sort of narrative or ideology that you're trying to push because it's false information. She posted something, and you have people in YouTube that are determining what's factual and what isn't factual. But yet at the same time, they're going to promote that they're a platform of free speech. No longer are they a platform of free speech if you're doing that kind of stuff to Savanah Hernandez. Don't even get me going, Steven Crowder, strike after strike after strike. Let the man speak. But then at the same time, you're not going to uphold that same policy to those on the progressive left and the Democrat Party. It's a double standard, you guys. It's so annoying. It is so frustrating. But we here at the Bald Brad Show are going to continue to push forward regardless. Steven Crowder's going to continue to push forward regardless. Savanah Hernandez doing a phenomenal job. Now a contributor to Turning Point USA. By the way, congrats, Savanah, if you ever see this episode. She's not going to stop. We're going to continue to push forward here. We're going to continue to get out there what needs to get out there before the midterms. Make sure you do like and subscribe to this video. Share it with your friends and family. Tell them what's going on. Even if they're not interested in the Bald Brad Show, say, hey, give the man a view. Give him a like and subscribe. because of what they're doing to conservatives right before the midterm elections. And now we're going to go full force, folks, because now I'm pissed. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this Sunday episode of The Bald Brad Show, and I will see you tomorrow morning here on The Bald Brad Show.